Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media on this Wednesday evening. It is Wednesday nights with myself, Inayet Wadee. As we tackle issues, we take a look at what is playing out in Palestine, in Gaza in particular now, the third month already with the massacres, with the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza. And clearly, it is very, very painful watching what is unfolding. And just today, we heard about a school, and yeah, there was no mortar shells, there was no bombing, there was no aircraft. And this at a school where we've seen young children, women mowed to the ground, slaughtered, and executed, execution style killing that had taken place. And the situation is getting dire. It's actually getting worse. The brutality that is unfolding with savagery that we haven't seen, unprecedented savagery that is taking place. And for all of us who are sitting on the outside, it is painful. It is very, very painful watching what is unfolding. But what about the people of Palestine? What about those in the diaspora? What about those in 1948 that had lost everything, that were kicked out of Palestine, the millions right across the Arab world and in many other parts around the world? What about them? They know someone. They know, they've heard of families that have been slaughtered, families that have been wiped out, and yet they are helpless. They can do absolutely nothing where they are at this point in time. So it becomes very, very personal for the people of Palestine, particularly those in the diaspora. In fact, last week on Friday, it became personal for me because I heard of someone I had interviewed in July 2023, Rana Shubair. And when I got the message that she was killed, or she was martyred in Gaza, I felt her pain because this is someone I had interacted with, someone that I had spoken to. And I went back to the interview I did with her in July just to listen to this interview. So, with all of this put together, we need to talk about it. We need to discuss it. We need to also talk about the people of Palestine, those in the diaspora, what impact this is having on them, on their lives, watching all of this unfolding from afar, this genocide, the massacres, and the brutality. And this is the reason why we have assembled a panel this evening. We've got Sister Lina Abu Jbara, who is from Jordan at this point in time, but also a Palestinian activist, and she does it through art. We met her at the global conference that had taken place recently in Johannesburg. We've got Dina Abu Jbara, who is a Palestinian social activist in Jordan. We've got Hamza Al Shabi, an activist out in Lebanon. The refugee camps, we cannot forget Sabra and Shatila, the massacres that had taken place. His parents were the victims at this massacre. And we've got Umayya Theba, who is with Friends of Palestine, and also Pretoria Muslim Women United. Now, we've assembled this panel for a reason, for a purpose, to unpack what impact this genocide is having. And I see on screen, we've got on top of screen, I've got Dina Abu Jbara. Dina, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome. Dina, if you could unmute your mic, please. Assalamu alaikum. Okay.
Walaikum assalam. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Brother Inayat.
Yes, Jazakallah to you, and also Brother Hamza, assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Umayya, assalamu alaikum. Wonderful you're able to join us.
Walaikum salam. Thank you, Inayat, for taking up this topic.
Okay, we're going to try and obviously get hold of Lina, but I'd like to start with Brother Hamza. Brother Hamza, just talking to you earlier on, and you were recommended by Umayya to get you onto the broadcast today, and also looking at where you are in Lebanon. And I spoke briefly about Sabra and Shatila, and I'm sure there are many, many memories for you. I know you were very young when it happened, but I'm sure your parents, your grandparents, and many other people that you know in Sabra and Shatila can identify with the massacre, with the genocide that is unfolding in Gaza today.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to send my greetings to all my brothers and sisters in South Africa, and the greetings for you, my friends. I am Hamza Al Shabi, I'm Palestinian. from Akka in the northern occupied Palestine, and I was born in Sabra and Shatila camp, the one who faced the massacre in 1982 by the Israeli Zionists who is continuing its series of massacres and who surpassed the Nazism in its criminality and brutality. But this time, Sabra and Shatila massacre was an agreement between the Israeli Zionists and some Lebanese militias. So it was somehow unique. I was not born. I was born in 1996, but my parents and the grandparents present at the time, they told us about some of the brutal scenes they had witnessed. So first of all, the enemy surrounded the camp, so no one can like escape from the camp. And then they used different or several types of weapons, such as the axes and the knives, to slaughter the Palestinians in the camp. And one of the scenes which is really brutal, is that they use the knives to cut open the abdomen of some women who are pregnant to remove the fetus and kill it. So it was really brutal and criminal. And for now, living in a camp means waking up in the morning to wash your face with salt water like that of the sea. You feel a burning sensation in your eyes and like a salty taste in your mouth. You cannot brush your teeth with this water. So you will have to use from the drinking water that you have to buy on a daily basis. Living in a camp means there's a high probability of being killed by an electrical um, fault or like electrical wire due to scattered electrical network. Also, sunlight and air do not reach into many homes. In addition, you are deprived of many basic human rights, such as the right to own property, join unions, and work in many fields. And in short, let me tell you that what you see is much more difficult than what you hear.
Well, certainly, and I'm sure we can identify with a lot with what is happening in Gaza at this point in time. I see Lina has joined us. We just want to make sure Lina has got a connection with us. Lina, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, wonderful you're able to join us. And I just want to get to Dina as well. Dina, you and I have had this chat before in the early days of this aggression that is taking place. And day by day, we're into the third month. And as I mentioned, it's getting more brutal by the day as we've seen what had taken place at the school today. But all of it, while it is playing out, and clearly, you mentioned to me, Dina, when I requested that you join us on this panel discussion, that you would do anything for your brothers and your sisters in Palestine. And I'm sure it's equally painful for you as well, Dina.
Yes, of course, Brother Inayat. Watching our people in Gaza and also in the West Bank suffering this much is just undescribable. The pain is very overwhelming. And what's more painful is the fact that we are not able to be as impactful as we would like to be due to the fact that our uh, regimes and our governments are not giving us enough of the space for us to do more than the normal demonstrations and the these kind of activities that are of course showing solidarity, but uh, it's for us never enough, as a means to help and assist our brothers and sisters in Palestine.
Well, certainly, I'm sure it's not enough for you, Dina, and also Lina. You've obviously been in the United States of America. When we met at the global conference, we had a brief chat in terms of your thoughts and your sentiments as far as what is happening with all the brutality that is unfolding. And I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you. It's not even easy for many Palestinians, not only in Jordan or in and around Palestine in the Arab world, but right across the entire world, Alina.
Yeah, for sure. It's what we're seeing unfolding is really a demonization of Palestinians. I mean, we've seen this in these so-called Western democracies of, the trying to criminalize phrases like from the river to the sea, or to prevent boycott, or to prevent even protests, and claiming that these are anti-Semitic slogans. And so I know friends in the US whose jobs are in jeopardy, whose unions have been suspended in their universities. So this really is a very concentrated movement to stifle the Palestinian cause, because even though Israel spends millions on propaganda, they can see that the world is really waking up and changing this stream of consciousness and public opinion about Israel. Even the UNGA vote that happened yesterday, and that passed this non-binding resolution. It's not enough, but we can see that even countries like Canada, who are staunchly pro-Israel, voted for a ceasefire. So I think the more that us as people put pressure on our governments, then they have no choice eventually, because they are countries that add, like, on a surface level, they pretend that they care about democracy and human rights and international law, and by supporting Israel, which is violating every one of those ideals, it looks really bad for them as well. In Jordan, at least, we have some sort of freedom to actually stand up and say, we are with Palestine, we are with the resistance. And that's not a luxury that Palestinians everywhere, like in Germany, and in other places in the West, they might not have that same luxury. And I'd like to say that in Jordan, we're really seeing a lot of solidarity. On Monday, there was a strike. Everyone, like, let's say 95% of stores and employees were on strike. And it's really nice to see that. And it's really nice to see that from Arab countries in particular, because I think Palestinians have felt so abandoned by them. But it's not the people, it's our governments who are really Western puppets. And so I think it's important to show that solidarity from us as well.
Yes, certainly. And bringing Umayya into the discussion now. Umayya, you've been following the refugees, especially the Palestinians in the diaspora, very, very carefully. And I recall, I think it was on Instagram, where you posted a video as well talking about the challenges that Palestinians in the diaspora face. And we know the intention with regard to Gaza, the intention with regard to West Bank as well, is to try and flatten Gaza, to kick the remaining Palestinians out of Palestine, and again to make them refugees, whether in Jordan or in Egypt, in the Sinai as well. And I'm sure with the video clip that you had put out, this is a major concern for you as well. And just looking at Palestinians in the diaspora, what they are feeling, what they are going through right now, I'm sure many in the diaspora would want to go right now to Palestine to be alongside their brothers, to be alongside their sisters, and do whatever they can for them.
Yeah, it's like I said, in the video, the Palestinian people who are in the diaspora, like I've made friends with Hamza and Lina, and Hamza was telling me his story. And part of what he said is that he studied environmental health and he didn't get a job in that sector. And he said to me, there are 30 fields in which Palestinian refugees in Lebanon cannot actually work. So I would actually like Hamza to elaborate, because what fields are those? And then that also makes a person wonder, like I said in the clip, if the Israeli terrorist state does manage to push the Gazans into the Sinai and surrounds, what does it mean for these people? Because they leave with their life, just their life and the little bit that they have. But can they actually build a life as refugees anywhere?
Well, certainly. And maybe Hamza, as Umayya has mentioned, that perhaps you'd like to expand on what she had to say in terms of, looking at, where you are right now and the challenges that you are faced with.
Uh, Let me speak in Arabic, and would you, Lina, help us translating?
Well, I'm sure Lina or Dina will help. No problem. Continue.
Okay.
No problem. Yes.
آه، تمام. فإذا مثل ما حكيت بالبداية إنه الفلسطيني وبالأخص اللاجئ في لبنان يعاني من حرمان شديد من الكثير من الحقوق، ومنها مثل ما حكيت حق التملك، ومحروم من عدة وظائف، محروم من الانتساب إلى عدة نقابات، وظائف يعني ما يزيد عن 30 وظيفة. فلذلك التحديات بلبنان للفلسطيني شديدة وصعبة جدا، وهذا كله تحت ذريعة إنه أنت كشعب فلسطيني لحتى ما تتخلى عن حق العودة، فإحنا بدنا نضيق عليك، ما بدنا نعطيك يعني كامل حقوقك اللي هي مثلا حتى منا موضوع التوطين، بغض النظر عن إذا أنا مع أو ضد، ومنا الوظائف والانتساب إلى النقابات. يعني نحن كفلسطينيين مش معروفين هل نحن لاجئون أم أجانب أم ماذا.
Okay. Yeah. Lina, you want to
Tina,
go
do you
ahead and
want to,
translate,
or
or you
should
want
I
me?
go?
As you wish. It's okay. Either way.
Okay, I can do this one. You can do the next one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lina.
Yeah, so Hamza was saying that as a Palestinian, especially in Lebanon, Palestinians are deprived of many rights. For example, the right to join unions, the right to 30 different jobs, the right to own property. And as a Palestinian people, they're treated this way under the guise of maintaining their right of return. So we can't give you a citizenship so that you can maintain that right. So it's very hard for Hamza as a Palestinian living in Lebanon to understand what he is. Is he a Palestinian? Is he a foreigner? Is he a refugee? So these categorizations are even hard to make because they're unclear even to him.
Well, thank you for that, Lina. And, Dina, just following up from what Hamza is saying, and just looking at the Palestinians in the diaspora, looking at Jordan at this point in time. And I think when the last time we spoke, you mentioned that there are many that would want to go back, but obviously you can't. But at the same time, looking at your roots, and this is important to understand, many, many people that you would possibly know in both the West Bank and also in Gaza. Possibly they could even be family members of yours, and just being so far removed from all this atrocities and the brutality that is taking place. How does it actually make you feel? What is the sentiment on the ground from the Palestinians in the diaspora in Jordan in particular, Dina?
Yes. To be honest, when it comes to Jordan, the identity lines are a bit harder to draw than in Lebanon, as Hamza, for example, or our brothers in Lebanon are suffering from. Because, as you know, in Jordan, we've had almost equal rights of citizenship. We have um, full accessibility to most, if not almost actually all of the jobs here, except certain positions in the army. So the fact that the Palestinians here have this kind of, let's say, identity uh, confusion is not as apparent as in other Arabic countries. Therefore, we have, of course, the solidarity because we are closer to geographically to Palestine, and we have a lot of our relatives as well on the other bank. So we have almost a very organic extension of ourselves, and we kind of. I would say that the sentiment here is that we are part of Palestine. It's not that we are on the far from it, or that we are just supporting what's happening there. It is actually an extension of us. It is something as defining to our identity as any other part of our identity. And so these lines are actually very, very hard to draw in Jordan.
Yes, and Lina, you've also got a very interesting story which we spoke about at the conference when you were in South Africa and coming from the United States of America, and in terms of coming to and identifying with your Palestinian roots. And I think I found that very, very interesting in terms of, at some point in time, things obviously you got a wake up call, for want of a better term, and when you realize that you've got to do something. And I know you're doing a lot through the art that you actually doing, but I'd like to talk about that defining moment in your lives, or when you started identifying truly with the cause for Palestine.
Yeah, yeah. I think all of us as Palestinians in the diaspora, we have this moment where we have this birth, like this rebirth, kind of connecting us to our homeland. Because many of us grow up, we don't really know that much about Palestine. We're kind of disconnected even from like our Arabic language, our Islamic or Christian religion, all of these things that kind of really attach us. Obviously, we're geographically distant from the land itself. And as Palestinians, as indigenous people, this connection to the land is very important. And so for me, that moment happened when I saw an artwork that depicted the expulsion of Jaffa, which is now known as Tel Aviv. Jaffa was actually one of the main cities in Palestine, and now it's been reduced into kind of actually a slum where Arab Palestinians live in the larger Tel Aviv municipality. And so I saw this painting, and it depicted how Palestinians were really literally driven to the sea, and they were forced to leave all of their properties, all of their homes, this very middle class, wealthy lifestyle. And seeing that painting, it made me feel like I was there. It connected my grandfather's stories with my heritage and my history, with that emotional moment that really, affected all of our lives. And it made me have that emotional connection to Palestine. And at that moment, I truly believe, like, in a sense, Lina as an identity, as a passion, as a life purpose was reborn. And ever since then, I mean, this was in high school. Ever since then, I've dedicated my entire life to the Palestinian cause. It's not something that goes away. It's not something that just flares up only when Gaza is being bombed. This is something I think about daily, and I dream about the day that I can go back and fulfill my grandfather's dream of going back to Jaffa. And even now, as a married woman, I married someone who's a Gaza refugee in Jordan. And there's 2 million registered refugees in Jordan. They're not like me. I have a Jordanian citizenship. And these, especially those from Gaza, it seems like the whole world is out to make them suffer somehow. Refugees that came from Gaza to Jordan are not given citizenship, and they're also barred from I think around 30 professions. They're not allowed to have certain driving licenses. Until recently, they weren't allowed to own property or own businesses. And so also, like what Hamza was saying, kind of living in this limbo of, am I Palestinian? They don't have a Palestinian passport. They're not allowed to go back to Palestine. Am I Jordanian? They have a temporary Jordanian passport that can be, revoked at any moment. And so literally they're kind of stateless. And as someone who will, inshallah, one day be a mother, my children won't get the citizenship. As Jordanian women, we can't give them the citizenship. So my children are going to be stateless. And so these are like these small things are really what affects Palestinians in the diaspora in a real way, but it's often kind of forgotten or something that we need to kind of cope with and move on with. But so long as Palestinians are living these struggles on a daily basis, we're not going to forget, and we're always going to want that sense of stability, that sense of homeland, that only returning to our homeland can actually give us. And so I think that's also important to share, that yes, although the majority of Palestinians in Jordan, are very much normalized and very much merged with the culture, there is a group of Palestinian refugees who they face a lot of discrimination, even in terms of like renewing passports, or if they're stopped by like police, things like that. There is discrimination, and it's as if being Palestinian is kind of like being less than, or it's kind of like a bad word in some sort of weird sense, even to their Arab neighbors. And so this is a policy of really making Palestinians' lives as hard as possible.
Yes, Lina. In fact, I'm going to come back to the Arab neighbors because I think there we've got to make special mention. But just to bring Umayya back into the discussion. Now, Umayya, we in South Africa, we know we've identified with the Palestinian cause for a very, very long time. But just listening to what Lina is saying, just listening to what Hamza is saying, and also Dina as well, it's an eye opener for us that we have not appreciated what Palestinians in the diaspora are going through. And all of this, some of it is actually news to me. And I've been in the media for the last 20 years. And, some of it has been unheard. And clearly, I am shocked at what I'm hearing. And I'm sure you, Umayya, as well.
Yeah, it was a complete eye opener for me as well. All the conversations I've had with all the Palestinian people that we met at the convention. But yes, you are 100% correct. We don't realize how lucky we are, because even a country like South Africa, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Inayet, but when our forefathers arrived here, they were given citizenship, because my mom's dad was Yemeni, and so when he arrived, they, in some weird Afrikaans way, they kind of got the spelling wrong, but that's how we were known. And despite him being from another country, he was given citizenship in South Africa. So, if he wasn't given that, what would we have been now? It's just a thought. And what rights would we not have had? Because we are extremely lucky to be able to choose our career path, to own things, to build generational wealth. And it's really, really sad that there are generations of Palestinian refugees who, like the other speakers have said, are in limbo, and really, I suppose, would just live from day to day.
Yes. And Hamza, just to ask you now, when you see what is happening right next door in Gaza, and what you're witnessing, all the carnage, all the killing on a day-to-day basis, what are you feeling? I mean, what goes through your mind? What goes through your heart? What are other people in the refugee camp feeling as we see all of this, all the killing and the genocide?
What's happening in Gaza today is a genocide in its ugliest form. It reminds me of the Nakba in 1948 and the Naksa in 1967 and all the massacres carried out by the Zionist enemy, such as Stantura massacre, Deir Yassin, Jenin, Manshi, Sabra and Shatila, and too many others. It is heartbreaking. We feel impotence when we watch our brothers, sisters, and children in Gaza killed without any mercy. Therefore, we carry out demonstrations of anger and all form of resistance. But I would like to say that we Palestinians, we are bigger and stronger than our pain. We emerge from under the rubble of our homes to say no to injustice, no to occupation, and no to genocide.
Well, definitely, Hamza, and also I think Dina, just following up from what Hamza is saying and talking about the people of Palestine, and we've always maintained that Palestinians are special. Palestinians are chosen people. No nation on earth would be able to withstand the oceans of injustices that have been perpetrated against the people of Palestine in every way, in every aspect of their lives, and just against that background, I think the world has also woken up to the fact, and many, when one just looks at the groundswell support on the ground, we're not talking about the politics, we're not talking about the governments, but just on the ground, millions right across the entire world have woken up to the true nature of who the people of Palestine really are, Dina.
Yes, yeah, I agree absolutely. The people of Gaza have showed us what the true meaning of humanity and compassion and justice and even izzah, in Islam, like the pride of fighting for justice. Um, I believe that, as we all know, maybe from an Islamic perspective, God tests and sends the ibtila'at for those who He knows are strong enough to carry the burden of this responsibility. And I truly believe that the people of Gaza are the maybe the only people on this planet that are able to carry such a heavy burden, uh, the burden of justice, the burden of carrying the last fair and obvious uh, battle between evil and goodness. And this is just not a normal event that is happening. Of course, the pain of the massacre is enormous. Yet the battle that they are leading, I think, will be emancipating for the whole of humanity, because there are so many battles that are happening on so many levels on this earth right now. And as you mentioned, Brother Inayat, the fact that people are waking up all over in this region and also in the West says a lot about um, people coming back to their humanity and realizing that a lot has been taken away from them, and they've been blinded for very long with injustice and all of the capitalist control over their knowledge and over their consciousness.
Yes, Lina, just in terms of how much the world appreciates the humanity of the people of Palestine, and we know that the Palestinian cause is not only about the people of Palestine. It is not only about the nation of Palestine. It is a cause for humanity. It is a cause for justice, and this is what the world has actually woken up to. And just in terms of how you see it and how Palestinians are being appreciated, and I'd like to just quote one statistic which I heard the other day, where on social media there were 8 billion posts that were pro Israel, but there were 180 billion posts that were pro Palestine. Now, that alone speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does. And just take into consideration the amount of posts that were censored or taken off. So even though there is social media censorship, there's all of this support. I think in the age of like TikTok and really quick information, I think that's really helped our cause. Because this is the first time I'm seeing this shift. Like, Gaza has been bombarded so many times over the years. So, like, in 2014, 2008, 2009, 2020, like so many times. But this is the first time that I've seen it really spread in this way. And I do think we have like Gen Z to kind of thank for that. And also, this is the first time that I think people have slowly been waking up to the mainstream media and how corrupt it is and how like censored it is. And so you would see immediately BBC comes up with this lie or this propaganda in real time. Someone on Twitter is disproving these lies in real time. So I think it's been established that Israel is just a complete liar, that the US can't be trusted in anything that comes out of its mouth either. Western media is also very biased. And I think people have woken up to this idea and they've taken the role of being the alternative media. So every person, whether it's like someone who has a cooking channel or someone who has like a fashion channel, every person is using their platform in order to speak about Palestine, which is amazing. And I really personally, I just love to like thank Gaza for what they've done. And I was speaking to someone living in Jerusalem who was sharing the same thing with me, that like Gaza has really been a wake-up call not only for the West, and we've seen so many people enter Islam because of the patience and the resilience that these people who have been taken, everything that you could possibly cherish has been taken away from them. The roof over their head, their children, their health, even like resources like water and food has been taken away from them, and yet they still have patience and faith in God. But also us as like Arabs, Muslims, who have been so kind of brainwashed by this Western order. I think we've woken up to the fact that the West will never truly embrace us and will never truly accept us as one of their own. And we've seen this in the way that they've been, going after protesters and peaceful protesters and things like that. And for me personally, for example, I've stopped listening to the music of these artists that support genocide. I've stopped watching their movies. I've stopped watching their TV shows. I'm no longer consuming this culture, like this, as Dina said, this capitalistic, hyper consumerist culture, this individualism. As Arabs, as Muslims, we have beautiful things in our culture that, there's these agendas to kind of take away this sense of community, this sense of faith, this idea that God alone is really who can control our fates, and not these like greater powers. And Gaza has proven to all indigenous people all around the world that yes, although the US is very mighty, it has a very large military, lots of control, it still isn't able to destroy the will of the people. And for the first time, Gaza has given everyone hope that someone can stand up to this oppression, to this colonialism, to these superior people that have been trying to tell us that we're less than, we're weaker, and will always be weaker, and that suffering will always be something that we inherit as brown people, as Muslims, as indigenous people, as the other, that we will never be victorious. We're just meant to suffer. So they changed this mindset. And so, like, eternally grateful to the people of Gaza for bearing this for us so that we can get this lesson.
Yes, and also, may I just talking about lessons? We've got some learned some valuable lessons ourselves here in South Africa, and I know you've been involved in many a campaign as well for Palestine, and clearly it's been an eye opener for you as well. But just throughout the campaign as well, just looking at the groundswell support here in South Africa, we seen it at the conference. I know you were at the International Day of Solidarity with the people of Palestine, and you just get this feeling that on the ground, despite South Africa, despite having a strong Jewish lobby, and I know today there was that case of Brenda Hurwitz, the Zionist lawyer who had actually appeared in court as well. But obviously, it holds us in good stead here in South Africa. The Palestinians' cause is very, very strong. It's thriving, and inshallah, the Palestinians also look upon South Africa because of our ugly history of apartheid in this country. They look at South Africa first when they look at solutions for their country.
Sure, Inayet. I can say that yes, there is a lot of support in South Africa for Palestine, but one thing that this entire, what is it now, over 2 months that has shown is that South Africa is still very racist. It is still very siloed. And Lina made a comment about us attributing a lot of the pressure on social media, etc., to Gen Z. Maybe overseas, but maybe I'm wrong, but not here. I feel that we didn't get half the turnout that we should have. Unfortunately, our communities here are lazy. They are still a bit self-absorbed. As people don't put themselves outside of their comfort zone to make it to the protests. And that is extremely disappointing that we go to a protest and we're lucky to have 800 people. I'm sorry to say, but that is the absolute truth. However, regarding the percentage of pro-Palestinian sentiment, yes, I did see a stat about immediately after October the 7th, it was around 65% pro-Palestinian, and now we're sitting at 95% pro-Palestinian. And those remaining 5% are those hardcore Zionists who are, we can equate Zionism to Nazism. And, the Brenda Hurwitz lady that was in court today, despite everything, she is still extremely arrogant, extremely cocky, and I heard that she kicked a candidate lawyer in the court and has thus had further charges brought against her. one last thing, I was actually curious to find out from our Palestinian guests, because I know Hamza showed me a video of himself and a friend singing resistance songs, and you know, heard many of them say Palestine is their life. They will die for Palestine, and I'm just curious to know how they maintain being in limbo. What are the things they do to maintain a sense of their Palestinian culture, where they just in your general life, if you can.
Hamza, you've heard the question from Umayya.
Yes, I did. Um, Maya, I will also answer in Arabic. And please, Lina,
يلا.
يلا. هي كان سؤال إنه إحنا شو اللي بخلينا نعزز هويتنا أو إنه نتمسك بهويتنا بفلسطين بفلسطينيتنا، ما هيك؟
انه كون احنا مش هناك وبعاد، يعني كيف
إيه،
يعني كيف بتولد هذا الشعور انه ممكن انت تموت عشان فلسطين، ارض انت اصلا ما زرتها مثلا.
تمام. الأمر بيبدأ منذ الولادة والطفولة وتربية الأهل اللي هن بيشربونا حب فلسطين شرب، بطعمونا إياه مثل الأكل. فبالتالي بنتربى على حب فلسطين وعلى حب العودة إلى فلسطين بأي شكل من الأشكال. فلذلك ممكن يستغلوا موضوع التربية والنشأة من خلال الأناشيد مثل ما حكت، اللي هي مرتبطة بفلسطين بالمسجد الأقصى، بالمقاومة. زائد انه هم بيضلوا دائما يذكرونا بالارض، الاصل اللي احنا بننتمي لها. مثلا قضاء عكا قريه شعب بالتحديد، يعني شوي ممكن يحددوا المفرق حتى اللي بدنا نفوت فيه لحتى نوصل على القريه تبعيتنا. فبننشا منذ الطفوله وبنكبر بنشوف اهلنا عم بيحملونا علم فلسطين وعم بيحفظونا وعم بيذكرونا وعم بيشددوا. زائد عندنا موضوع الايمان وبالنسبه لي الموضوع الديني. فبالتالي كل هاي الامور مع بعض تجتمع بترسخ تعلقي وحبي لفلسطين بقلبي بالصميم.
Yeah, so Hamza was saying that it's something that starts from birth, and he described it as even kind of being like fed this love for Palestine as babies. Like it's, they become so saturated with it, with this love for Palestine from such a young age. They become completely saturated with it, and this could be done like through parents sharing stories, through different songs, like the song that he shared with you, Umayya. Songs that really create a bond and connection with Al-Quds and Al-Aqsa. And he was even saying he's from Akka, and it comes to a point that he can almost visualize the physical path back to Akka, like he kind of visualizes that moment when he's going to go back, and so all of these things kind of really make Palestine a part of his heart and a part of his core. Like it's a core identity for him.
Dina, I think what Hamza said, visualizing, when he's going, in fact, he's worked out in his mind in terms of going back. And I'm sure millions right across the entire world, Palestinians right across the entire world, diaspora, cannot wait for the day they get back to Palestine. And we know Hamza mentioned Masjid al-Aqsa and the al-Aqsa flood, and central to what is playing out in Gaza as well. And we know it right from the beginning. Al-Aqsa has been central to the struggle for the people of Palestine. And I know, Dina, you in Jordan, but right next door to Masjid al-Aqsa. And I'm sure, that also is a very, very sore point in the hearts of many, many Palestinians, that you are so near, yet so far, you can't even get into Masjid al-Aqsa.
Yes, absolutely, Brother Inayat. This is a very painful point, actually, because many of us here and I speak mostly, I mean, for myself and the people I know, it is not an option even for us to take, for example, a visa from the Israeli embassy in order to visit our country and, go to Jerusalem and pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque and see the lands of our forefathers, in Yafa and everywhere in Palestine. So we are really deprived of this physical connection. But as Hamza mentioned, uh, we're connected. Our hearts are there. So for me, to be honest, it is more important that we boycott any visit via the recognition of the Israeli embassy. It is the pain of not visiting uh, is worth it, and because the alternative of going there via a recognition of this entity is just unacceptable, personally, for me or any of the people that the majority of the people here, I think.
Lina, I just want to move on to the neighbors of Palestine, the Arab world in particular. And since October the 7th, we've seen this call being made to the United Nations to do something. We've seen this call made to the United States to do something. We know the US had vetoed the Security Council resolution. And again, with the General Assembly, they were one of the countries, again, that obviously turned down this resolution. And just your thoughts, I mean, with regard to the Arab world, how much can they do? What more can they do? What is expected of them from the people of Palestine?
That's a difficult question. I mean, you really need to differentiate between the Arab governments and the Arab people. And I think it's like even my husband, every day he comes home so frustrated because he wants to do something, but we feel unable to do anything because, our governments kind of have us kind of caged in and unable to really do any physical action. And so, like what Dina said, what we can do is like boycott, is as much as we can use our voices in creative ways, go to protests. Like many people say, okay, like what am I going to do if I chant some chants in the street? Like what is that going to do? I strongly believe that we need to be in the streets, if not weekly, if not daily, to really at the least just show the people of Gaza that we're thinking of you, we're not moving on with our lives, we're there with you, we're trying the best that we can. Like I said, our hands are somewhat tied, and like this is kind of what we can do. I mean, the sad thing about it is that I truly believe that Israel's existence in this region really divided the Arab world. Like before the creation of Israel during the Ottoman Empire, it was all one Arab Muslim region, and so you could go to Syria. Like there were no borders between Syria, between Palestine. There's a place in Jordan, there's a city in Jordan called Ajloun, and until now you can see the bus, and it has the bus stops, and one of it is Jerusalem, Amman, Beirut, Lebanon. And so we had this beautiful reality where we were all brothers and sisters, no borders. We could just, you could pray in Masjid al-Aqsa, and then go back to Amman in the evening. Like it's so close, so there's so much proximity. And so it's really frustrating that, with Sykes-Picot and with the Balfour Declaration, these are all colonialist agendas that really divided us as the Arab people. And the beautiful thing is that I think Palestine has unified us in a way that we haven't been unified in a long time, not only as Arab nations, but as a Muslim ummah, in its entirety.
Well, that is clear that the Palestinian nation has been chosen by Allah on behalf of 2 billion Muslims strong, in fact, to take care of the honor and the dignity of Masjid al-Aqsa. And they've done it. And they've done it with resilience. They've done it at the cost of their lives. They've done it at the cost of their blood as well. But they will continue regardless as well. But Umayya, just coming back to us here in South Africa, and it's clear that we've got this close connection with Palestine. The Palestinians look upon us, and they look upon the entire world. In fact, we've seen all the support, and I'm sure they appreciate the support that they are getting on the ground from millions of people and billions of people right across the entire world. But our struggle needs to still continue, and not only at a time where we see the massacre, where we see the genocide that is unfolding, then all is forgotten. But it's got to be continuous, it's got to be sustained, and we need to make sure that we keep up with the momentum all the time.
100%, because as Lina has said, unfortunately, the occupied Palestinian territories have been bombarded by Israel, the Israeli terrorist state, time and time again. And I really, like the rest of you, feel that there's something really different this time. Israel can never recover from its reputational damage, and it will suffer militarily, financially, if we all continue to boycott, which is why boycotting is just so, so important. But we cannot stop this time, especially until Palestine is free and Palestinians have the right to return. Because, Inayet, I don't know about any of you, but we shouldn't be having this conversation again in another 3 or 4 years. This needs to be the last time. Things
Yes.
need to, Palestine has to be free, it will be free.
Yes, I see. Dina, I've just got a note saying that Dina wanted to add something. Dina, continue.
Yes, brother Inayat. Sorry, and I really, actually, I'm very fond of what Umayya just said. She made the visualization of the freedom of Palestine much closer, and inshallah that will be the case. I just wanted to add a note on what we are able to do, because this is important, on what we're able to do, and what as nations surrounding Palestine, and as governments, as anyone who is concerned with the cause. I think the least that our nations are able to do is to reform the educational system. This is really the minimum that we can do, that we make an independent educational system that is concerned and centered around our values, and our what we define, our own definitions of freedom, our own definitions of justice, not the definitions of whatever we have imported from this globalized culture. We need to break free from the chains of debt, of economic debt, that is making us uh, so helpless, that is making our governments, even without actually any sort of sovereignty as they should have. This is the minimum that we can do, and the first starting point, I think, is reforming education, because only then these next generations are able to slowly rebuild a strong nation. And then if we have strong nations, only then that this whole all of this injustice will automatically be dismantled, because a strong nation will not even uh, be able to put up with the injustice that is going on right next door.
Yes, I see we've got a few minutes to go, and I'm going to go around the panelists this evening, starting off with Hamza, just to get final thoughts, final words from you, Hamza.
Huh?
كلمة أخيرة حمزة
Final thoughts. Okay, in general, تمام. لينا ممكن تكوني على السمع. أود أن أختم بكلمة نقولها في العربية، في اللغة العربية، وهي: ما أخذ بالقوة لا يسترد بغير القوة. ما فعلته المقاومة في 7 أكتوبر هو رد فعل طبيعي وشرعي وقانوني وبجميع أشكال يعني الشرعية والقانونية، كرد فعل على جرائم تراكمت على عدة عقود على مدى 75 سنة وما يزيد. فما كان إلا من المقاومة، وعندما أقول المقاومة يعني حماس والجهاد والجبهة الشعبية والديمقراطية وغيرها من الفصائل الفلسطينية المقاومة، كان رد فعل طبيعي على جرائم ومجازر تراكمت. فنحن مع المقاومة ونحن نشد على أيديهم، ونتمنى لو أننا يعني نستطيع أن ندعمهم بشكل أو بآخر، لأن ما أخذ بالقوة لا يسترد بغير القوة. لنا أراضٍ اغتصبت وسرقت، ولا شك علينا أن نستردها وأن نستعيدها. وأيضا أريد أن أوجه التحية إلى أهلنا في اليمن وهم عرب، وإلى أهلنا كمان والمقاومة في جنوب لبنان وفي العراق وفي كل مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، وإلى كل أحرار العالم الذين يقدمون الدعم لغزة ولفلسطين حتى ولو بالكلمة. وأشكركم على هذه الفرصة الرائعة.
Okay, so Hamza is saying that he'd like to conclude by sharing an Arabic saying that we have, which is, "What is taken by force cannot be retrieved or retaken except by force." And so October 7th was really a legitimate form of resistance by the Palestinian resistant movements to atrocities that have been committed over 70 years. And so he strongly stands by the resistance. And when he says resistance, he doesn't just mean Hamas. He means, Islamic Jihad. He means all of the different resistance factions that have been working in order to continually have this physical resistance against their colonizer and occupier. We are with them, and we wish we could support them more and more, because without resistance, we cannot retrieve the lands that were stolen. And the only way we can get back our lands is by force. And he also sends a message of thanks to all of the resistance, even outside of Palestine, to Yemen, to Lebanon, to Iraq, to all of the free people around the world who are, in a sense, resisting, even if it's with just their words. He'd like to thank them, and he'd like to thank you for hosting this really nice discussion.
Jazakallah for that. And Dina, I know you are a bit in a rush as well. So, Dina, I'll give you the opportunity, some final words from you.
Yes, Brother Inayet. Thank you for your hosting. I think Brother Hamza mentioned most of the points that we'd like to mention. It is very important for us to highlight and stand very strong that we are behind our resistance in Palestine. No one on this earth can accuse our resistance of being terrorists. No one can accuse us of retaliating over retaliating. This is our innate right. This is our land, and anything that we do and anything that our people in Gaza and in the West Bank, anywhere on the land of Palestine, anything that they find suitable for them to restore their lands and to restore their freedom is legitimate, and this is their right of determination. The right of self-determination, the right of every Palestinian. They speak on behalf of all Palestinians. As a Palestinian here in Jordan, and I can tell you this for all, on behalf of all the Palestinians on this planet, these are the only legitimate spokesmen on behalf of Palestinians. And I would like to contextualize this as well further with South Africa. As Mandela once said, we know that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. This is very important. The freedom of the whole of humanity is incomplete as long as superpowers and such as the state and of course the imperialist followers like Israel and other people here in the region, as long as they are there, we are not free. All of us as nations are not free. And the only land that is free is actually Palestine and Gaza. They are the only ones who have their own destiny in their own hands.
Shukran for that, Sister Dina. Umayya, final thoughts?
Inayet, I'll start by saying that we're in December. South Africans are in holiday mode, and everyone's going to go off to the coast and have a great time. And when you do that, please continue to boycott. When you go to restaurants, please be mindful of what you're eating, be mindful of where you're staying, be mindful of the kind of entertainment that you're consuming. We have to persist. We also have to, every day, just based on the color coordination that I have of the Palestinian flag, I have conversations with all sorts of people that I run into during my day, and I take every opportunity. The minute they compliment me on something I'm wearing, I take that opportunity, because the doors are wide open, to talk about Palestine with our native South Africans, to educate them about the situation, because they're aware, but it seems complex to them, and so they don't fully understand it. And I really always seize that opportunity. So we need to also remember, again, back to the boycott, to put the needs of the world and of humanity above our own selfish needs and comforts. This is very important to me, that we understand the power of the collective. So again, in South Africa, over these past few weeks, I've met so many wonderful South African people who who are also very close to the Palestinian cause. And I will say to them, reach out to me, I'm reaching out to you, let's network, let's collaborate, even on social media. Describe it as digitally holding hands. Let's do this with the whole world, so that together we can, in a way, dismantle the Zionist powers that have seeped into all the institutions, from media to big pharma, etc. And then I think what I would like to know, and it's a very broad question, if any of you want to answer, but what else can we do for you? What else can we do for the Palestinians in the diaspora?
Yes, I will ask Lina to obviously answer the question with her final thoughts.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. I would just like to reiterate, like, freedom for Palestine in Palestine is not going to be pretty, it's not going to be easy, and it's going to have to come by force. As Hamza said, what was taken by force needs to be taken back by force. But what we can do until that moment is to keep this idea of a free Palestine alive. And the way that I do that is through my art and through educating kids through art and symbolism, the importance of what freedom truly means. And in our religion, in Islam, we have this. There's a prophetic saying where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was saying that if you see something wrong, or if you see an injustice, try to change it with your hands, and if you can't, then try to change it with your tongue, and then if you can't, then try to change it with your heart. And that's the least that we can do. So for every person watching, every person around the world, I truly believe that God has created each one of us uniquely with a set of skills, with a set of talents. Try to find what it is you can contribute to the Palestinian cause. It can be any small thing, through poetry, through art, through advocacy, through relationships, through networking. And during our time in South Africa, I met so many people doing amazing things. So, for example, there's the Royal Society for the Conservation of Nature in Jordan, and they're doing great work to preserve Palestinian lands and to preserve the right of Palestinian farmers. So you can reach out to organizations like this. There's also people donating money in order to buy SIM cards for people in Gaza, who this SIM card can really save their life underneath the rubble, in order to contact emergency ambulance services. So there's a lot of things we can do other than just praying. We need action. And so that goes back to Umayya's question, like, please, as much as you can, help us to keep this idea alive. We don't know how long it's going to take to liberate Palestine. Help organize art galleries, poetry events, literature events, all of these type of events that can really awaken South Africans, young South Africans who you said are maybe out of touch, and also give young Palestinians a platform to share their message to the world. So I think that's what we really can do. And even us as Palestinians in the diaspora, it's our duty to amplify the voices of those inside of Palestine as well.
Well, shukran for that, Lina. And, the second option you spoke about, raising your voices. And this is what we are at Salam Media, Alhamdulillah, to use our voice, to use the airwaves, to use whatever platforms that we reach out to people, and in line with our ethos, in line with the phrase that we had coined when we formed Salam Media, humanitarian journalism, because this is what it's all about. It's about being humanitarian, and we will continue raising our voices as well, but also at the same time exposing exposing the persecutors, exposing the Zionists, exposing those that have committed this untold brutality against an innocent people. And again, dua, which is a powerful weapon of the Muslim. We continue making dua. We know what to izu man tasha, what to zillu man tasha, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated the status of the people of Palestine. They've gained respect right across the entire world, and we see what has happened to the Zionists. They've been disgraced, and with their lies that have been debunked almost immediately when that lie has been told, and that disgrace will continue, and it will continue, inshallah, until the time that Palestine is free, and we continue in our struggle. But for now, to all of you, to Lina Abojaradeh, to Dina Abu Jbara, to Hamza Al Shabi, and also to Umayya Theba, we thank you. We say shukran to all of you for taking time out, being part and parcel of this panel discussion right here on Salam Media. We appreciate your time. We know these are difficult times, but again, we keep our faith, we keep our hope in our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Palestine will be victorious, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام
Wa
ورحمة
alaikum
الله
salam. Free
وبركاته.
Palestine.
جزاكم الله خيرا everyone. Thank
شكرا
you.
لكم جميعا.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of Wednesday Nights with myself, Inayet Wadee. And I must say, it's been a very, very inspiring, it's been a thought-provoking experience just hosting this panel discussion this evening. And it is something that is very, very close to our hearts. And we will continue, inshallah, at Salam Media, bringing you discussions, programs like these. And we have been non-stop since October the 7th, focusing entirely on Palestine and Gaza, and we will continue, inshallah, going forward. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. So from myself and the team here at Salam Media, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening.